Hello, class. It's time for our daily read aloud, and today we're going to start chapter 10 of The Power of Un. Now, last chapter, remember, he got the Unner back, and he thought he corrected everything, but turns out there's something much worse coming down the pipes. I don't know what could be much worse than what had happened to Roxy, but he fixed that at least, right, for the time being. So we'll have to see where it goes. Pay attention to today's instruction, because today I want you to sketch what you see in your mind as I'm reading. And this chapter is called What Is and What Isn't. I walked in slow motion, squinting through the twilight at my high tops, half hidden in the deep litter of fallen leaves, stepping around rocks and roots whenever I saw them, even if they were small. I kept the Unner tucked under my arm in a snug hold, as if it were a football and I were on my way to the end zone in the biggest game ever. All the while, my mind was going 1,000,000 miles a minute. The old man knew my future, and Roxy's. He had to be from the future. It fit perfectly. If he was a time traveler, all kinds of things about him began to make sense. The display panel on the back of his hand, his strange clothes, his sudden appearances and disappearances, and the fact that he often arrived looking and smelling as if he'd just had a close encounter with enough electricity to light a major city for a week. Most of all, it offered a clue about why he'd given the Unner to me rather than to one of the zillion or so other people on the planet who appeared to be much more powerful and important. Some events are a lot more momentous than they seem. I knew that from the spitball incident. Maybe some people are more momentous than they seem, too. You're important in the world, and so is Roxy. Everything depends on you. There was something ominous about the way he'd said it, something big. It was hard to hold on to such a scary idea. I wasn't sure I wanted to be so important that someone from the future would go to the trouble of inventing the Unner and traveling through time to deliver it to me. Not once, but twice! And I definitely didn't want everything to depend on me. What did I know? I was just a kid, after all. I thought Roxy was already saved, but if I still needed the Unner, maybe I was mistaken about that. Or maybe Roxy's accident was the wrong thing to undo. Maybe some other event was the key. How was I supposed to know? I didn't want to think about it, because it felt like standing on the edge of a cliff. Why hadn't he just told me what to do? Thinking voice. How would you feel if you were the person responsible for... Oh, look, I have my thinking voice right here. I mean, if somebody came back in time and told you that, I feel his pain. The voice of the character. Since I wasn't late for dinner and didn't have a scraped nose, the whole scene with Mom at the front door just dropped out of existence. I hid the Unner in my bedroom, then went straight to the kitchen to eat. Mom was in the bathroom when I arrived, probably putting on makeup or messing around with her sequins. Dad sat with us, whistling and pulling on his cowboy boots while we ate. Roxy talked non-stop. "Oh boy, Rainey's coming over and it's going to be so much fun, so much fun. I can hardly wait. She'll play doggy with me. I know she will because she always does. And Mommy says Rainey's going to take me to the carnival, so nya to you, Gib. You're not the only one who gets to go." "Well, what?" I croaked and dropped my spoon. Stew splattered everywhere. "What did you say?" "Golly, Gib, watch what you're doing," said Dad, clumping to the counter to tear off a paper towel. He'd only succeeded in getting one boot on. Roxy, did you say you're going to the carnival?" "Yeah, nya," she said, sticking her tongue out between her grinning lips. "Roxy, stop that. It's rude. Behave, you two," Dad growled as he handed me the towel. "Clean up the mess you made, my friend." "But, Dad," I said as I swiped at spilled stew, "she can't go to the carnival. She just can't." "What do you mean?" said Dad. "Of course she can. I think it's wonderful that Lorraine offered to take her." No, you don't understand. It's..." A little groan accidentally escaped my throat, along with a couple of sentences I didn't mean to say aloud. "It's way too dangerous, don't you see? Do you want it to happen all over again?" Dad froze in the midst of pulling on his second boot. "Want what to happen all over again?" "The exit..." I barely stopped myself. My voice trailed off into embarrassed silence. A second passed, then two, while little beads of sweat popped out on my chin. I gulped and tried to start over again. "I mean, she might get hurt. Little kids get hurt all the time at carnivals." Which sounded pretty lame, even to me. Actually, I'd never heard of a little kid getting hurt at a carnival. Hey, you know what? He's a pretty quick thinker. I don't know what I would say if I accidentally slipped like that, right? I guess Dad hadn't either. "Gib, what's this all about?" I jammed my hands into my pockets to keep him from seeing how shaky they were. I don't know, it's just too dangerous, that's all. He looked at me as if I'd announced that saving the rainforest wasn't worth the trouble. It sounds to me like you just don't want your sister to go, and you're having difficulty thinking up good reasons for it. Wouldn't you say that's a little bit selfish? That's not all. That's not it at all. You don't understand. I wish I were on the far side of the galaxy. Luckily, Mom walked into the kitchen just then. She was in the process of putting on a pair of armadillo-shaped earrings by feel, and she seemed a little distracted. Gibbs just worried, honey. That's not selfish. In fact, it's kind of sweet. She planted a kiss on my cheek, then said, darn lipstick, and rubbed the spot with licked fingers while I squirmed. Don't worry, kiddo. Rainey won't let anything happen. Roxy's completely safe with her. If Dad and I weren't certain of it, we wouldn't let her go. Roxy watched all this with interest, then grinned at me and said, "Nya, nya," again. Behave, Dad repeated. The doorbell rang, and there stood Rainey, her arms full of school books. Even though it was Friday night, she'd be doing homework as soon as Roxy went to bed. I wondered if she ever gave herself a break. Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Finney. Hi, Roxy. She smiled at me, looked at the floor, and added, Hi, Gib. Why is she acting that way towards him? It didn't exactly take the mighty powers of observation to see what she was thinking. With big hearts over both eyes, I stopped myself from groaning just in time. It would have been idiotic, especially in front of Mom and Dad. More to the point, there was still plenty of room for things to go wrong if Rainey got mad at me again. Somehow I was going to have to stay on her good side without making her think I liked her. I mumbled, Hi, how are you? While I panicked inside. Dad helped Mom into her fringed sequin jacket, and she picked up her red, white, and blue purse. Major deja vu. Bye, kids, she said, blowing us kisses. Have wonderful times. Dad, all smiles again, said, Roxy, behave for Lorraine. Gib, make sure you're in by 10, and don't worry so much. Everything will be fine. He slapped me on the shoulder, which meant I was forgiven and all was well. But he didn't know the future. When I'd closed the front door behind them, I turned to Rainey. So you're thinking of taking Roxy to the carnival? Yeah, I thought it might be fun, she said. She smiled in Roxy's direction, and her face got soft and happy. It came to me that she really liked my sister. Roxy can be such a pain. I guess it hadn't occurred to me that Lorraine might babysit her because she actually enjoyed spending time with her. Could you come out to the living room, I asked. Roxy looked up from her stew. I'm coming too! In days of yore, I would have just told her no and commanded her to stay there and finish her dinner. But after the accident, bossing her around wasn't much fun anymore. So instead I said, if you finish your stew, I'll try to win a stuffed dog for you at the carnival. Deal? Roxy's eyes went wide. Deal! She said, and she got busy with her spoon. One more crisis averted. I looked at Rainey. Please, I have to talk to you about something. In private. Rainey's cheeks got red and she stared at the floor again. Oh, you mean the note? She mumbled. My own cheeks got hot as I realized I'd just made a strategic error. I floundered around, trying to think of something I could say that was true but not too insulting. I only acted like a dimwit in shining armor because I had to. No, I totally do not want to talk about that dumb note. Desperation set in. I heard myself say, Oh, well, thank you for the note. It's nice to know you think I'm nice. Rainey's face lit up like a birthday cake. It was so great what you did. I mean, getting me out of trouble like that, even though you had to take the blame unfairly. Well, thanks, but I scratched around the neck of my t-shirt, which suddenly itched and felt way too hot. You know, it probably wasn't as great as it seemed. That was pretty much the understatement of the year. Oh, yes, it was. You're a really good person, Gib. I smiled. I couldn't help it. It feels pretty terrific when somebody tells you you're a good person and means it as absolutely as she did in that moment. A second later, though, she ruined the whole thing. Taking me by surprise, completely by surprise, she darted in as fast as an attacking bat and kissed me on the cheek. We both stood there for a couple seconds, stunned. I reached up and started to rub it off, then stopped myself. Rubbing off the kiss might make her mad. I nearly groaned again and had to stop myself from doing that, too. Things had gone from sticky to hideous. Rainey was no longer looking at me. She stared hard at the floor again, but I could still see that her cheeks were as red as atomic fireballs. I was pretty sure mine were too. I cleared my throat. It seemed like a good time to change the subject to what I'd been wanting to talk to her about all along. Roxy, the carnival, and the truck end of terror. The problem was, what exactly could I say? The great and powerful Gib knows all, sees all, Roxy's in great danger tonight? I took a deep breath. Look, and this is going to sound really weird, but, well, I need your help tonight. My help? Said Rainey. To her credit, the look on her face wasn't lovesick. It was somewhere between puzzled and suspicious, which seemed sort of like progress and gave me hope. It's it's about the carnival. If you take Roxy over there, please, whatever you do, don't let go of her. Not even for a second. What? Rainey wrinkled her nose. She's not a 2-year-old. How's she supposed to play a game or have fun on the rides if I can't let go of her? What's this all about? I scratched my neck so hard she'd probably wonder if I had fleas. This is hard to explain. Don't ask me how I know, because you wouldn't believe me even if I could tell you. But Roxy's in terrible danger. There's a stray dog at the carnival. Roxy loves dogs, and she might run after it, right into the street. I stopped because Rainey was staring at me with her eyebrows up and her mouth slightly open. Finally, she said slowly and carefully, as if I might be too sick to hear her. I'm supposed to hold on to your sister like a prison guard because she might run after a dog. Do you feel all right? Yes, I'm fine. She didn't reply. She stood there looking at me. I could tell she was trying to figure out what in the world was going on in my head, and nothing she thought of made any sense. Not that I could blame her. I sighed and scratched my neck some more. Okay then, it doesn't matter why. Just don't let Roxy run into the street. It's really, really important. This turned out to be the wrong thing to say. Rainey threw her books on the couch and planted her hands on her hips, her shyness and embarrassment suddenly sizzling into storm clouds. Do you think I'm an idiot? I'm not going to let her anywhere near the street. You think I would let a 6-year-old run into the street? The look she gave me was so angry I put my hands up to shield myself from it. So much for pink notes and hearts. No, that's not what I meant at all, I said, and this time I did groan, because the look on her face didn't change even a little. I'd managed to get her mad in spite of myself, and trying to fix it was only making it worse. Forget it, I said. I know you'll take good care of her, my mistake. I probably should have added something polite, like have a nice night or see you at the carnival, but the whole situation had begun to feel like standing inside a beehive. So I turned without another word and walked to my bedroom. I slid the under into the pocket of my baseball jacket and ran out the front door. My warning still might make Rainey extra careful, I thought. If it didn't, I'd just have to come up with a different way to solve the problem. I took a huge breath of cool, dark air and headed down the street toward Ash's house. I knocked on the Jensen's front door and felt weird when Ash's dad answered it. I half expected him to ask me if I was feeling better now, because the last time I'd seen him was the night of Roxy's accident. But of course none of that had ever happened as far as he knew. It was just an ordinary Friday night to him, and I was just an ordinary neighbor kid from a perfectly ordinary happy family. I stood in the entryway a few minutes waiting for Ash, peeking toward the living room in a scene so cheery it looked like a calendar painting. Ash's parents were playing Scrabble at a low table in front of the wood stove and laughing a lot. Before long, Ash and I were walking side by side through the autumn night toward Lafferty Park and the carnival. Ash was so excited he could hardly stop talking. Oh man, I hear the people on the rides. Smell the popcorn? Hey Gib, what should we do first? How about the Devil's Elevator? It's hard to describe how much I wanted to feel just the way Ash did, bursting with joy at the prospect of so much fun right around the corner. But I'd done it once already, and it ended in blood and tears. It was impossible to forget, and I wouldn't have wanted to forget it anyway. If I forgot about it, how could I stop it from happening again? There was also the fact, like a constant itch in the back of my brain, that the Unner sat right there in my pocket. I had this incredible device that Ash had helped me learn to use, but now he knew absolutely nothing about it. I couldn't stand it another second. Ash, look, stop a minute, I said. I have to tell you something. He stood still and really looked at me for the first time that evening. What's wrong? I sighed and took the Unner out of my pocket. The scene that followed was eerily similar to the one in the forest that had happened. When? Well, the scene that might have happened the next morning in some other life. As I showed Ash the Unner, I felt the strange pressure that meant I was changing the way things had originally happened. And I wondered again whether I, or anyone else, had a right to do such a thing. There didn't seem to be an answer. We sat in silence on the curb while dead leaves whirled around along the pavement in a breeze that came and went. This is very weird, said Ash. You're telling me. You mean if you hadn't stood up and taken the blame for Frogner's spitball this afternoon, Roxy would be run over by a truck tonight? I nodded. The thing is, I'm not sure that really fixed it. I think something bad is still going to happen. Otherwise, why would the old guy have brought me the Unner again and given me those warnings? I mean, take the Unner with you tonight. Don't drop it in the leaves, and most important of all, don't use it unless you have to. Why would he do and say all that if he didn't know there was more bad stuff to come? Ash shook his head, gazing at something far away and invisible. You think he was from the future? It's the only thing that makes any sense. He looked at me. You want to know what I think? What? I think he's you. I think the old man is you visiting yourself from the future. What? I said again stupidly, because I felt as if somebody had suddenly turned on a light in a dark room, and everything looked completely different from what I expected. He's you. Think about it. That's how he knows so much about you and Roxy. That's how he knew you'd be in the woods. Why hadn't I thought of it before? It explained everything, but how could he be me? I said. I mean, he's so old and shriveled and weird. I mean, I think it's pretty cool myself if it's true, said Ash. My best friend is the guy who invents time travel. So what if he turned out weird? Big surprise, he flashed a grin. I punched him, and he punched me back, and we both laughed. I still couldn't believe it, though. I just couldn't imagine myself being like that when I got old. Ash stood up and dusted off his hands. Come on, we better get out to the carnival fast, he said. That way you and me and Rainey can all keep an eye on Roxy, and if anything bad happens, we'll be right there with the Unner to fix it again. Yeah, but how do we know? I mean, how will I ever be sure if I'm fixing the right thing? What if Roxy's accident is supposed to happen? Get serious, said Ash. Roxy's accident is not supposed to happen. Bad things are never supposed to happen to kids. I wanted to believe him. I really did. But I thought about stories I'd read in the newspaper about Roxy and the truck. Bad things did happen to kids. They happen all the time to people who didn't seem to deserve them. I couldn't even start to figure out what it meant to say they weren't supposed to happen. How could anybody ever be sure about that? Come on, said Ash. We might as well have some fun while we're keeping watch. He ran toward Lafferty Park, and I jogged along beside him, hoping with all my might that he was right, that Roxy's accident wasn't supposed to happen. Well, guys, about 20-something more pages, and we're done with this book. Pretty quick book. Things are getting a little interesting. Some kind of moral questions there. Kind of tough things to think about. I mean, we never want bad things to happen to people. Are they supposed to? Interesting. It's like a philosophical book almost. Anyway, be sure to pay attention and answer the instructions as given in the activity, guys. Royans. Oh.